Okay, I think we're live now. Hey everyone, it's Anand from UnderdogStrength.com. And today with me, I've got none other than Ray Williams, who is one of the strongest people to ever walk on the face of this earth. Hey Ray,
What's going on, brother?
not much. How are you?
Man, I'm loving life, man. Loving life.
First of all, I have to congratulate you on your performance at IPF Worlds.
Thank
Even though it wasn't your all-time best total, you still set the deadlift record, and you also won overall, right?
you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
It
so,
was
so
pretty
was
good
this?
experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, was this your fifth overall? Sorry, the fifth gold medal in the super heavyweight class?
Yes, sir. It was my fifth consecutive super heavyweight world championship. My second time getting champion of champions.
Right, which is which is really incredible. And so, one thing I wanted to ask you was, what were your expectations going into this meet in terms of numbers? And then, how do you think you perform based on that?
Um, I did everything I wanted to do but squat.
Mm,
My
right,
bench was right where I needed it. Um, right what I expected to do coming out of training. I actually could have probably put a few more kilos on the bar for bench, but
mhm,
me and Coach Gary, we stuck with the plan. Deadlift went better than I expected.
right,
Um, went in there looking to pull about 870, and we ended up with 878. Squat, I was going. I wanted to do between 1080 and 1080 and up, and just wasn't in the cards.
mm,
Had some technical technical difficulties in the squat, so had to go with Plan G on that one, and try to salvage the rest of the meat from there.
right. Yeah, and even your last deadlift actually looked really fast to me, and it's the all-time biggest deadlift in the IPF. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I think somebody has actually pulled 881.
Oh, okay.
If I'm not mistaken. I think somebody has pulled a little bit higher.
Hmm.
Um, don't exactly quote me on that, but I
Right,
think somebody else has the all time record.
right. So, what's your plan going forward, especially with Raw Nationals coming up?
Um, Raw Nationals is hold on one second. No, Raw Nationals is going to be kind of rough because, as everybody knows, I coach football. So,
Mm,
coach junior college football
oh,
here at Itawamba Community College, located in Fulton, Mississippi. Uh, I have a game the day before Raw Nationals. So I'm going to coach my game, hop on the plane Sunday morning, um, and I'm going to basically fly into weigh-ins. So I'm going to get there right before weigh-ins so that I can compete and try to secure a spot on the world team for next year. So I wouldn't I wouldn't expect your typical Ray Williams esque performance because I'm basically getting off a plane and
oh.
running into warm ups. So just not going to be rested.
Right. Yeah, that sounds pretty tough, actually. And then, are you gonna do anything specific for next year's IPF Worlds?
You said, am I going to do anything special?
Right. Anything specific in terms of your training for next year's IPF Worlds?
No, I'm just going to keep everything the same.
Okay.
What I've been doing has been working. Um, and the beautiful thing about what I do is individualized for me. So if I do need to make some changes or I do need to add more accessory work to strengthen one of the three core lifts, I do it. So, my workout routine is always changing and evolving.
Right. Right. So I want to ask you, when did you first start lifting? Like not necessarily powerlifting, but just in general.
Eighth grade. Um, and I'm from Demopolis, Alabama.
Mhm.
And in order to play football, you have to lift weights. You have to lift weights, and you have to do summer workouts. So as an eighth grader, going into my ninth grade year, um, right after spring ball was over, we started lifting weights, and ever since then, it's just kind of been, an addiction. I love the weight room. The weight room is where you go to, ease your mind. So I've pretty much been lifting weights since I was about 15, 16 years old, 15 years old.
Right, right. Yeah, which is pretty incredible because for me personally, I started lifting weights when I was like 13 or something, but it wasn't for powerlifting or even performance. I was like I just started lifting for weight loss. So I don't know. It's a pretty different thing, but regardless, I can kind of relate to what you said about it being so addictive. The feeling of the weights.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I can totally relate to that. So when did you first start getting into powerlifting? From just being a lifter at the gym to actually thinking about competing.
In 2011, me and my brother kind of had a Facebook competition about who would bench 500 first. So from there, we would basically just post videos back and forth of where we were as far as our progression. And I guess he got bored with, just lifting and being big and being strong and, not really using it. So he did a powerlifting meet down in Florida and he loved it. And told me about it, told me about the cool people he met, told me about what, kind of powerlifting entailed. And I liked it. And I looked into it, did a little research. Because honestly, truthfully, I didn't even know powerlifting existed. And when I did find out about it, I thought you had to have had a background in it or pretty much just been brought up in the sport.
Mhm.
But it doesn't work like that. It's a very novice sport. Um, and once I found out that anyone could do it, I switched my way of training from training like a football player and an athlete to training like a powerlifter. And I did my first meet in 2000, October 8th, 2012, right up the road here in Peppertown, Mississippi.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I remember from your seminar that even before you started powerlifting, you were already lifting pretty heavy compared to most people. So could you tell us what your numbers looked like when you first started powerlifting?
Um, when before I even thought about powerlifting, I mean, I was a 405 bencher. And that's regular bench. That's with a bounce. But I
Right.
could do 405 for about 3 to 5 reps. Um, didn't really deadlift. I didn't start playing around with the deadlift until I actually started powerlifting. I was more of a hang cleaner and a power cleaner. Now I power cleaned a lot before I started powerlifting, but my squat has always been my best lift. I was squatting 700.
Wow.
Seven. No, before my first meet, I did 800 at my school weight room, and that was before I ever started. And it was just because I just wanted to be as strong as I could. Like my goal was to hit 900 even before I started powerlifting. Like a
Wow.
thousand never crossed my mind, but I was like, I'm gonna get 800, and
Wow.
eventually I did.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible actually. So you've been coaching people for a while, Do you also coach powerlifters regularly, or is it mostly football athletes?
I don't necessarily say I coach
Hmm.
power lifters. Like I'll give advice. I would
Hmm.
say I'm a powerlifting consultant.
Right.
I'm not refined enough to where I could get in there and coach a powerlifter. Well,
Right.
not necessarily say I won't say I'm not refined enough. I just don't have the time because I'm also working on my doctorate at the University of Memphis. So I just don't have time to be a coach. But there are a few people who I'm a consultant for. Like they'll send me videos. I'll watch their videos. I'll make recommendations. You can do XYZ to improve your XYZ.
Mm.
And, that's pretty much the extent of me, helping powerlifters. I don't coach. I don't do programming. I say that for the big dogs. Right now, one day I will, but just not now.
Right. Right. So when people ask you for, let's say, a form check or things like that, you must have observed so many common patterns, right? So what would you say is something you observe commonly? Like, let's say on the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, what are some form errors that pretty much everyone has?
Pretty much in the squat, one of the most common form errors. Um, and if we're talking about just form errors and not mobility issues and stuff like that, one of the most common errors is breaking at the knees first.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of young novice lifters have a tendency to break at the knees first, and what that does is you don't give your you don't give your body the opportunity to get the best muscle engagement or the best muscle recruitment when you're squatting. Just because breaking at the knees, um, you're you're not allowing your glutes and your posterior chain. You're not giving it the what's the what's a good way to put it? You're not giving your posterior chain, your legs, your lower body the opportunity to actually engage in the proper muscle recruitment for an effective, fast, good squat. So one of the most common things you see in a squat is breaking at the knees first. Bench, bench is bench is a different animal. Like bench really has a lot to do with your body type. Um, like you can name a billion common form errors with bench, but one of the most common is not getting engaged, not getting your back fully engaged, or lying on your lats, which actually give you a really good bench. And with the deadlift, it's most common area you see in deadlift is not really pushing through the floor, not using your legs as much, because deadlift is more of a push, not a pull.
Right. Right. Yeah, and when you said when you talked about the breaking at the knees, right? Would you recommend breaking at the knees and the hips at the same time, or would you recommend starting at the hips first and then
Um,
break at the?
I recommend starting at the hips first
Mhm.
and then let the knees come shortly after. Hips first, knees shortly after.
Right. And does this also apply to high bar squatters?
Yes, because regardless of whether you're a high bar or a low bar squatter, if you break at the knees first, especially if you are not as polished with keeping your torso vertical, what's going to happen is now the weight that's on your back when you break at the knees, now you're putting that weight in front of your knees over your toes. Like even high bar, low bar, whatever, you always want to keep the bar over your hips. You never
Right.
want the bar to get in front of your hips or way over your toes. So I was just always taught and was always drilled in me by by powerlifting coaches and from what I've seen so far to break at the hips first.
Right. Right. So, and then in terms of these three lifts, right? Could you give us like maybe one tip to improve each of the lifts?
I mean, with squat and deadlift is mobility.
Right.
Like just by improving your mobility a little bit, you can be a better squatter and a better deadlifter. Like
Right.
I think my deadlifting progression started, or my deadlift improvement started once I became more mobile. Once I was more flexible in the ankles and in the hips. So for squat and bench, for squat and deadlift, it's the same thing. It's mobility.
Hmm.
Your ability to bend, your ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Um, and with bench, I wouldn't necessarily say so much as mobility, but it's just technique. Um, and to be a little bit more specific, um, hmm, because I'm not the best bencher in the world, but if I could give one tip for somebody to get better at the bench, I just say tension.
Hmm.
Your ability to maintain constant tension. Um, and for example, at Worlds, everybody was like, "Man, that last bench really moved. It looked good. It looks like you had a few more pounds in the tank." And the thing is, whether I did or didn't, I really couldn't tell because I was so focused on staying tight and really driving and trying to explode that weight off my chest.
Right. 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 And well, I actually asked on my Instagram if people had any questions for you, and the most common question that I got was, how do you either prevent injuries, or if you're injured, then how do you work around those injuries?
Um, Prevention is easy. Prevention is easy. Number one, you have to stretch before and after, and that's
Mm.
something a power lifter does not want to hear.
Right.
But you have to have a proper warm up and cool down routine. Like you have to get the body warm, and once you're done, stretch your body out again to kind of help those muscles rejuvenate themselves, to help those muscles start the rebuilding process, get fresh blood in the muscle, get that lactic acid moving. Hydration, proper warm up, proper cool down. And as far as being hurt and working around it, that's more on the individual. Like
Mm.
with me, I've always been a very self motivated person. And if I am hurt, I just go to the gym and figure it out. You have to have the mental toughness to
Right.
work around injuries. And you have to know that it's gonna suck. Like this is gonna hurt. Whatever your injury may be, it's gonna hurt, but I still gotta get the job done. So that's more on the individual.
Right. Right. So,
But I will say this: it's the difference between being hurt and being injured.
right.
You
Right.
know, one one you can push through and get the job done. One you need to listen to your body and seek professional. You know, get professional help. Like if you're injured, then don't risk hurting yourself further. But
Right.
if you're hurt, you can find a way and get what you need to get done.
Right. And have you ever had any major injuries in your training so far?
Knock on wood, no.
That Yeah, that's pretty incredible. So I would say, what you're saying about preventing injuries, I think everyone can really learn from that. And I've experienced this myself, especially after I attended your seminar, right? Um, I, Before I attended your seminar, I wasn't doing a lot of mobility and warm-ups, because, partly because I was being lazy, and a lot of coaches actually recommend just a minimalistic approach, that just step under the bar and maybe do a couple more reps just to warm up. But
Yes,
after I started doing the ankle stretches that you showed us, and even the hip and hamstring stretches, I would say my technique has improved quite a bit, almost instantly. So I mean,
because powerlifting is about leverage. Um, if you can get yourself in a position to create better leverage, then you're gonna be a better power lifter. I mean, like I stated earlier, like my deadlift got better when I was more flexible. When I
mm,
was more on the stiffer end, everything was heavy, everything was hard, and I always had that weight, which was 600. That once I got close to 600, I kind of felt and kind of knew it's about to get heavy here because my technique was flawed. I wasn't mobile, and I knew that the way I was doing things was preventing me from actually making any type of gains. So, you know, just, mobility is key in powerlifting.
Right.
And not only moving weight, but also injury prevention.
Right, right. Yeah, I completely agree. And for anyone who's listening, you at the bare minimum, if you could, look at your ankle mobility, because that's where a lot of people, have really tight ankles. I think even that one thing can really make a huge difference.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Yeah. And then besides the three lifts, right? What are some of your favorite accessories that you like to do?
Um, anything lower body, isometric, any type of lift, whether it's leg extensions, hamstring curls, adding abductor work, banded duck walks, RDLs, pull downs, push downs, variations of the exercises, anything where I can isolate a muscle group. I am very big on, just isometric work because I feel that, in order to have strong quads or strong legs or a big squat, those individual muscle groups, the quads, the hamstrings, the adductors, the abductors, they must be strong. And I guess to kind of steal from Bill Kazmaier, I didn't quite understand what he was saying until I got home and thought about it. But Bill kept saying, you take a puzzle, you take the individual pieces, you refine, you reshape, you make those individual pieces better. Then you put those pieces back together to ultimately create a bigger, better picture. And I didn't understand what he was saying, but then I got home and I thought about it. Like, that actually makes a lot of sense. If I want a big squat, my quads have to be strong. My hamstrings, my groin, my IT bands, all that has to be strong. So, like I said, I'm a big fan on isometric work. Like anything where I can isolate a muscle group, I love.
Right, right. And do you have any future plans of either training for or even competing in strongman?
I'm playing around with it. My girlfriend is a strong man
Oh
or
wow.
strong woman. Um, so I'm playing around with it. Don't really know the what it would take or anything like that. But right now, one of the hardest problems for me training for strongman would be there are no strongman gyms around here. Like
Right,
there, the closest strongman gym here is 2 hours away in Memphis, NBS Fitness. So, you know, like I'm not driving 2 hours every day to train. So I'll toy around with it maybe when I'm when I have better when I have more resources, in my immediate area. But right now, whenever I get an opportunity to play with the stones or the log, I do. It's intriguing. I definitely think that. I definitely think with proper training, I would definitely enjoy the sport.
right. Yeah, I mean that would be really interesting to see, the carryover from powerlifting to strongman. I mean, I know it's pretty different, but still, it will be really interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely have to slim up a little bit because I'm not the tallest, and strongman does entail a lot of moving, and being that I have a football background, that wouldn't be a problem. Um, you know, um, some of the stuff most of the events would be totally foreign to me, but I think I can call on my football background and my powerlifting background to at least give me a decent foundation to get my foot in the door.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's sounds really fun. Like but when do you think you're gonna start training? Like maybe in a couple years or something like that?
Come on, for strongman.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I would. It would be. I would almost be lying to you if I even put an estimation on it.
Mm,
So I honestly I don't know.
right, right. And do you have any future seminars planned out this year?
Um, I in July I'm going to be at July 21st to 22nd. I'll be at Dan Campos Fitness up in Philadelphia. Then I have another seminar at the end of July in New York, and I have I'm working on a seminar for down in Florida.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Not
because
nothing too. I tried not to do as much during football season.
right, right, right. Yeah, I brought this up because, after attending your seminar myself, I was hitting PRs just right after. So, even though I train at a gym with a lot of great lifters and strong people, I still got to learn so much from it. And, it wasn't just learning, right? It was like a hands-on experience because, having having a person to guide you on the spot is like completely different. So if anyone listening ever gets the opportunity, I highly recommend it because it's totally worth it. Because
It's
if a
all
person,
about it's all about different perspective. Like if you're going to be a power lifter, if you're going to be a strength athlete, period, you not only have to believe in what you believe in, but you also have to look at different perspectives, and you have to even listen to the people that you don't necessarily so much agree with, because what that does is it gives you that background, or it gives you that knowledge, so that when you do see something that's wrong or off, you can immediately connect the dots and you can help that person. Like I listen to anybody. When it comes to lifting, getting better in any way, shape, or form, I like to consider myself a sponge. And the reason you're probably hitting those gains and you're making this progression is because when you go to a seminar, like a lot of people take notes and a lot of people ask a lot of questions, but it's like you said, it's the actual act of getting to lift, to, hey, check out my squat. Tell me what you see, and, you know, what do you think I can do better? That helps. And, I'm not saying I know everything. I'm still learning. I try to learn something new every day. But the thing is, I've been around some of the best lifters in the world. I've been around some of the best strongmen in the world. Like when I was with Thor, Big Z, Kazma, I was trying to soak up as much as they was willing to put on the table. When I'm hanging with, for example, Mike Teixeira, Matt Gary, Kim Walford, when I'm around these people, I'm trying to soak up as much as I can, because we're all different, and that knowledge that you accumulate over time, you can pass that knowledge on to somebody who may have a similar issue that you've heard before in the past.
right, right, and these people have either made so many mistakes themselves or seen or work with so many athletes that you can save so much time by learning from what they've learned, rather than making all those mistakes yourself and then trying to learn from that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I think we already learned so much within this half an hour, and to be honest, we could even go on for hours and hours. Uh, but before we end this, could you let people know where they can find you?
Um, if you wanna find me, Ray Williams, I'm on Instagram. My name is Optimus Prime. underscore 334. Yes, I said Optimus Prime, like the Transformer, underscore 334. On Facebook, um, it's my full government name, Ray Orlando Williams. Um, and on any of these profiles, it's a guy powerlifting. So, there
Right.
you go. There you have it.
Right, right. And I'm gonna leave a link down in the description for anyone who wants to just click on it. But Ray, I wanna say thank you again so much. First of all, I really enjoyed your seminar, and just my lifts have just improved so much within that one day. So I really have to thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time today. For coming on and spreading all the knowledge that you have with so many more people now.
No problem, sir. I appreciate you for having me. Hell, I appreciate you for even considering having me on your podcast. It's an honor. Um, and if I can give you any advice, man, keep seeking, keep looking for knowledge. Never be a closed book. Always be a sponge, willing to absorb. What people are. Even if it's knowledge that you deem unusable, you never know who you may bump into down the road who could use it. So be a sponge, keep grinding, and stay healthy, man.
Wow, yeah, that's an incredible message, and I couldn't have thought of a better way to end this podcast. So I just want to say thank you once again, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care.
You too, brother.